There's been a lot of hype about Wemby and the amazing start that he's had to his rookie year, with many people even saying that he's the greatest rookie since LeBron James. But by those people making those comments, they're downplaying the greatness we've seen from other rookies in this recent era, as a lot of people do get caught up in recency bias and forget rookie campaigns like the one that Blake Griffin had, being one of only 2 players since the start of the 2000s to make an all-star team in his rookie year, while also being one of 2 players to average 23, 12, and 4 on 50% shooting from the field, with the only other player being able to do that in their rookie season being Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And by the time that Blake's second season had rolled around, the Clippers had put together one of the most exciting teams ever seen in the league, the Lob City Clippers, who were of course led by Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Jordan. As the excitement from that team brought the Clippers from 22nd in attendance in Blake's rookie year all the way up to 7th in ticket sales by Blake's second official season. Along with this excitement came sky-high expectations, and for a very brief moment this team rose to the top only to fall short due to multiple reasons. While Blake was still in college, one of the pieces to the Lob City team, DeAndre Jordan, was being drafted in the second round by the LA Clippers. Although his rookie season was very underwhelming, only playing a total of 53 games while averaging under 15 minutes for those games. But he did show flashes of what would make him successful in this league, being very aggressive on the offensive boards while being a great rim protector, having multiple 4-block games in his rookie season and even a game where he snagged up 5 offensive boards with 6 blocks. And then only 3 games later, he snagged up 7 offensive boards with a total of 20 rebounds on the game. The Clippers definitely saw the vision with him, but his true breakout year was still yet to come, with the team finishing off DJ's rookie year being tied for the second worst record in the entire league. This meant that they'd have pretty high odds to snag the first overall pick in a very loaded draft that would include many future Hall of Famers like Steph Curry, James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, but at the time there was one clear standout, and that was Blake Griffin, who every team was hoping they'd get, as he not only had an insane highlight reel coming out of his 2 years at college, but his game was extremely polished and explosive. All of these teams that wanted to land him, and the LA Clippers hit the sweepstakes when they got the first overall pick in the draft lottery. And after the actual draft, the team would somewhat clear house to fit his actual needs. But unfortunately, Blake Griffin would suffer a knee injury in preseason before his NBA debut would officially start. There was some hope that he'd be able to return, but news dropped in January of that season that his knee would require surgery and he'd be out for the remainder of the year. In Blake's absence, DeAndre Jordan did however see a slight improvement, playing 17 more games on 2 more minutes a game, but his own personal game didn't really see an improvement, and neither did the team's record. And to add on to all of this, during that offseason there was a bit of a narrative forming around Blake Griffin and if his injury struggles should be more cause for concern, which he must have heard, as he spent that entire offseason working out and getting back into form, and definitely didn't disappoint in his NBA debut, as he dropped 20-14-4 while also playing 38 minutes without a single wobble or worry about his knee. And that momentum carried all the way through the year, only taking 14 games before he was able to have his first 40-point game, dropping 44 against a pretty solid Knicks team. And that's not mentioning the fact that he also had 15 rebounds and 7 assists. He would go on that year to make the All-Star team and win that year's dunk contest, in maybe less than legit ways, but nevertheless he dominated the league that year while putting up some pretty insane stat lines, getting his first triple-double in his rookie season in a win against the Wizards where he dropped 33, 17, and 10 on a very impressive 73% from the field. And notably, Blake also played all 82 games with a single injury that year. Alongside him, DeAndre Jordan was also building chemistry on and off the court with BG, as his minutes saw a major jump in Blake's rookie season, while also managing to average an entire extra block a game, as it seems that the team finally realized his talent as a rim protector. But even with all of these positives, the team still wasn't winning games. Yes, Blake was still a rookie, but he had already shown that he was on the level of some of the other top guys throughout the league. So the Clippers knew they had to go all in on a final star to round this team out, a true point guard to lead this young high-flying team. And at that time, Chris Paul was showing promise of having historic levels of greatness. And he was also asking out of his mess of a franchise in New Orleans, and also was very apparently open to coming to LA before David Stern stepped in and blocked a league-shaking trade at the behest of other franchise owners. which is a topic for another video, but for the Clippers, this meant that he was still very much on the table, and the team went all in, sending Eric Gordon, Alfred Caminu, Chris Kaman, and an unprotected first-round pick to the 2012 draft, which at the time had some people questioning if it was too much, but considering how quickly CP3 fit in with that team, I doubt the head office was regretting bringing together Lob City.
Once Chris Paul got to the team in 2011, the conversation changed from the media considering the squad up-and-comers to legitimate title contenders. The Clippers were dominating the NBA headlines this season. The dynamic trio of Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan became synonymous with high-flying dunks and highlight reel alley-oops. Some of the most exciting highlights in the history of the NBA can be found from this team, and there's no exaggeration there. Dubbed Lob City, this era was characterized by electrifying plays and heightened expectations. Lob City games were must-watch basketball from a showman point of view, and the team demonstrated that they weren't just flashy, they were winning games. Chris Paul was an amazing floor general and was surrounded by a number of top athletes and good shooters. However, despite the initial and continued excitement, Lob City ultimately fell short of its championship aspirations for reasons we're about to dive into. They actually fell so short of their expectations that they never made it past the second round of the playoffs, despite actually having some pretty stacked teams. There are a lot of factors that contributed to the failure of the Chris Paul era LA Clippers. One that really stands out is a story we're all too familiar with: injuries that held the team back at vital moments throughout its history. Once the team's core was assembled, some role players changed, but LA's three stars kept it rolling for a few years. Chris Paul, the orchestrator of Lob City's offense, battled a series of injuries that significantly hampered the team's chances to go deep in the playoffs. One notable instance occurred during the 2015 playoffs, where the Clippers faced the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference semifinals. In Game 7, a pivotal matchup with a trip to the conference finals on the line, Paul played with a hamstring injury. Despite his efforts, the injury limited his game, and the Clippers ultimately succumbed to the Rockets in a heartbreaking defeat. Paul was also injured for the 2016 and 17 playoffs, sadly getting injured in the first round, leading to the team getting knocked out both years. Blake Griffin also dealt with his fair share of injuries, including one that also affected the 2016 series against the Blazers. He also got injured in 2017 as well. Over the course of this Clippers era, injuries not only affected the players individually, but also disrupted the team's overall chemistry. The Clippers often found themselves adjusting to new rotations and lineups on short notice, making it challenging to maintain the consistency necessary for playoff success. Week to week, fans and the team didn't know what version of the team they were getting. Sure, altogether the team looked unstoppable, but more frequently, at least one of the team's pillars were wearing street clothes. The unfortunate timing of injuries during critical playoff series significantly diminished Lob City's ability to showcase its full potential on the grand stage. Speaking of a lack of chemistry, that's what sharpshooter and Lob City member JJ Redick thought was the single biggest reason why Lob City failed on his podcast. Injuries aside, Redick felt that there was a certain element of pettiness on the team and that people just weren't happy for each other's success. This is an unfortunate side effect of having your LA-based team loaded with flashy players. Eventually, everyone gets talked about so much that egos start to go through the roof. Championship basketball can't be played when players are busy thinking about the limelight, and it's all too easy to get distracted, especially in LA. Something else that affected the chemistry, according to Matt Barnes, is that the team lacked mental toughness, leading to a number of situations that could only be described as a breakdown when the heat got too intense. Los Angeles had a culture issue. When compared to other great teams like the Warriors and Heat, it's clear as day that the issues were bigger than the injuries. Of course, as Blake Griffin brought up on JJ's podcast when talking on the matter, pettiness and breakdowns alone don't lose you championships. Blake essentially thought that while they had chances to win in 2014 and 15, they really just weren't good enough to win any of the years after that. Steph's Warriors were on the rise, and LeBron was hitting his second wind for his career, carrying Cleveland any time after that. That really is an unfortunate reality that a lot of people fail to even think of. A good chunk of the NBA thinks they're good enough to win every year, but it's hard to judge yourself or your team without bias. Let's face it, the Clippers were good, but the West was stacked in that era. Every single playoff matchup was a minefield, with Damian Lillard's or Steph Curry's waiting to erupt for 50 every single step of the way. Even if they made it to the finals, they'd more than likely encounter a rampaging playoff LeBron. This is where good coaching would come into the picture. Chemistry issues, as well as a team's lack of coming together to play bigger than themselves, is where a truly elite coach could bring together a unit. Unfortunately for the Clippers, Doc Rivers was the head coach from 2013 all the way past the bitter end of Lob City. If you want a deep dive on Doc, check out one of our first and longest videos right here. But to summarize, Doc, after winning a championship with one of the first modern super teams in the 08 Celtics, earns a reputation as a top coach. He eventually finds himself in control of Lob City, where he once again coasts off the back of his great players. You see, Doc's main philosophy right up until he stopped coaching this year was literally barely make adjustments and let the stars figure it out for themselves. Basically, Doc just didn't do anything. In fact, during his tenure as coach, it's pretty widely believed that he was a large part of what caused the breakdowns that Blake and JJ talked about on the podcast. He also managed to spearhead the throwing of a 3-1 lead in the 2015 playoffs, one of the many thrown 3-1 leads in his career. This coaching style didn't quite suit the LA players the way it did suit the fiercely competitive Celtics, where KG was leading from the floor, Paul and the other stars couldn't hold the team together. To put it plainly, Doc is a fraudster who has everyone fooled. Imagine if Greg Popovich had prime Lob City at his disposal. I doubt he'd be out here throwing 3-1 leads at the very least. Lob City was a thrilling chapter in the history of the Los Angeles Clippers, but much like the rest of Clippers history, the hype and spectacle didn't turn into banners. The combination of Chris Paul's elite playmaking, Blake Griffin's athleticism, and DeAndre Jordan's shot-blocking prowess created a team that captured the imagination of basketball fans. A combination of injuries, tough competition, coaching instability, on-court struggles, off-court dynamics, and a failure to adapt ultimately prevented Lob City from achieving the champion success it aimed for. Despite its shortcomings, Lob City remains a memorable era that really launched the Clippers into legitimacy as a franchise and basically gave life to this current rendition of the Clippers. Looking back, drafting Blake and trading for Paul were no-doubter moves that most GMs would have made. Unfortunately for the Clippers, in the NBA, there's just not enough winning to go around. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. It all really helps grow the channel, and we'll see you next week.